Hello, loves. For today's video, I want to talk about coming back to ourselves. I thought about calling this Getting Your Mojo Back, and I think I've done something on the channel years ago around this theme. But I realize now, from where I am, the wheel of my own life and my own journey, please forgive me too, guys, I'm coming down with a cold right now, that it wasn't so much about getting my mojo back as having really burnt myself out, and also needing to acknowledge that I'm in a different chapter of my life physically, where my body needs more nurturing and caretaking in order to show up the way I would like to in my life. And we all move through these stages and chapters in our own stories, and we can all go through these time periods of depletion where we feel like we can't get back to an energy level that we typically feel like we maneuver around in our lives, or we can't come back to a feeling of peace or contentment or groundedness. And we may find that we're also dealing with a level of depression and anxiety, or just pure exhaustion that no amount of sleep can seem to assist in shifting for us. I often find in my personal journey, but also in my professional work, that these time periods herald an initiation of sorts and a shift into a new chapter in our own stories and different ways of being. So this video is meant to assist you if you find yourself in that space. And it's kind of a deck list, but I also have some, I'm going to call them card spreads in the title, but they're more like card pulls that are meant to be worked with over the long term. Because the first thing that I find very helpful to do when you're moving through this type of an experience is to pare back the practice to the simple foundational basics that are supportive of your journey. So for instance, for myself in the month of January, instead of working with 5 different decks for a daily draw, which is what I had been doing in order to get to know some new decks and also just strengthen that muscle for myself, because many of you know I love daily draws and daily journaling, I pared my daily draw practice down to 2 cards from 2 beloved decks. And my journaling sessions, I didn't force a long period of time for, but just allowing a little gentle space to process what I felt able to express around my level of exhaustion and also feeling of disconnect, and then be able to move about the day holding the message of just those 2 poles and the knowings that I had sitting in space with my guides and gods for that time. And then of course it really does become a great deal about nurturing ourselves while we're maneuvering through a threshold experience, a time of transition. Because like I said, oftentimes I think these periods that we may move through of just feeling totally burnt out and exhausted, disconnected from our passion, feeling disconnected from ourselves, they really are an initiation, a threshold that we're crossing over to move into the next space. And so for me, nurturing and caretaking of the physical body, you know, personally, that meant that January wasn't a month that I was trying to break workout goals, but to slow down, to let my exercise and diet be more nurturing, to relax the need to be rigid or to have a lot of control over my body, but just to be nurturing of the body and where your body is at. Not judging based on what you see other people doing, but really reflecting on, like, where am I actually physically? What does my body need right now, so that it can feel as supported as possible for the things that I need to do. And I do know, being a full-time single mom, as my son is getting older and the scheduling gets more intense, this has really come up, the need to be gentle with myself around what I am capable of doing on any given day. And while other individuals may have a lot of expectations on what I'm going to do, there is only so much that one person can do. And I know many of us feel in this culture today that it's so fast-paced and so disconnected from being tapped into what the body wants and needs, and much more about hustling and getting things done. But that isn't a way to be. to live, to be embodied. The other thing I was also profoundly shown over the last month is being understanding of the body when it moves through times of transition. And reaching 40 has definitely shown hormonally a big shift for me. And so not judging myself based on what I was able to do at 35 or 30 or 25, but instead being present to where I am right now has been very important. And it's helped me to really feel like, excuse me, especially over the last few days, like I've crossed over a threshold around feeling this sense of burnout and disconnect from the things that bring me joy and fulfillment in my journey. The other thing that I would just offer before I get into this list with the card pull questions, the mini spreads, if you will, is to tap back into passion, to what you can feel passionate about, and to connect to the senses. So for me, that's very much been, it's been very important to tap back into something that I feel passionate about. And for me, this go round, it was reading, to really connect with some books that felt like bosom companions and friends in the time and space in my day where I did have enough energy to invest in something that was going to give back to me. Reading became something that really offered me a lot of reconnection to passion. Excuse me. And the other thing was to combine that with an aspect of my work. So for instance, I've been doing a lot of reading around Circe and the dark feminine in regards to this particular myth, and exploration of one's power when it comes to walking a path as a witch, especially as you're moving through transition from one space on the wheel to the next. And so that's been a way that I've been able to tap back into my typical passion, which is all things dark feminine and lusty beauty and those things that have been staples in my own experience of passion. But to allow myself to access that from a different doorway, from a space of reading, just to enjoy it for myself, not looking at necessarily what I need to do to create with that. Taking that pressure off allowed me to tap back into passion. And the final piece that I would recommend around this is connecting with the senses. Now, I know that I am ruled by the planet Venus, and so I do always come back to the senses in my daily experience, but letting the senses allow me to feel a breath of fresh air and to allow a shift around anxiety and depression has been very helpful. And so I just want to give you an example, a few examples of how you can tap into that. So for me, it has been looking out the window at the backyard where I live and seeing the beauty of the woods and where the woods meet the yard. And now that everything is covered in snow again, really just savoring the beauty of nature and allowing myself to look for the birds that I see flying in the sky when I'm driving my son back and forth to different things. That's another way that I'm tapping into this sense of sight to check back in with beauty. And then another thing that's been very helpful from a sensual space for me, and by that I mean living with the senses, has been tapping into scent. So to wear a specific perfume that even if I've been absolutely exhausted, but I catch that scent on my clothes or as I'm moving around through the day, and that just stopping and taking a moment to really tap into what am I smelling here? What are all these different scents that are kind of dancing together with the pH levels of my skin, and what does that feel like? Like taking a moment to appreciate that. Really loving candles and specific fragrances with candles and incense, to just give myself permission to take a break as I'm moving through the day. And instead of thinking about the endless list of things I have to do that's never done, tapping into that scent aspect of memory and beauty, and letting that be a way that I can be connected to the light. That has been profoundly helpful for me. So I wanted to share those observations, but also what's worked for me there, in case you're finding this video when you're moving through this yourself as well. That kind of stripping things back to the basics. So for me, it's like, I'm not doing a bunch of spreads right now. I'm not working with 5 decks a day personally. I mean, I'm reading for others, so I'm always working with a lot of decks every day. But in my personal practice, stripping things bare, letting the time not be as lengthy or intense when I don't have the energy for that. Tapping back into a passion, but working with a different way to tap back into that, instead of having it be about, for instance, in my personal example, a workshop that I'm going to teach, or a goddess that has come forward. When I feel too tired to even feel into that goddess coming forward, I can, through reading, tap into a goddess, an archetype, a myth that allows me to find my passion again. And through that space, breathe some vitality into my being. So those kind of very simple practices, tapping back into passion, connecting with the senses, nurturing the body, stripping your practice down to the bones so that you are being fed, but you're not over consuming, and you are not giving yourself too much of a workload. And the final piece that I would say is getting off of social media. I'm only posting on Instagram right now for my viewers and existing clients. I do not do any scrolling. I haven't over the last month. I might repost something that's beautiful if it pops up at the top of my feed when I open the app, but I'm not scrolling. And stepping away from social media has allowed me to stop feeling like I have to hustle all the time or catch up to something, or if I'm not constantly producing, that I'm failing. And stepping out of that dynamic, that kind of, what do they call that, like rat race dynamic, has been very helpful as well. So that's a final piece of advice that has worked for me if you find yourself in this space. So that being said, I want to talk about the process that has helped me come back to myself here for this go round on the wheel of depletion, because we all experience this. It's something we're all going to come back to. It's not a space we can avoid, right? I want to talk about what I have found helpful. And I'm going to recommend 1 or 2 decks for each of these sections, but it's actually really important that you work with the decks that you feel this level of support from. It's not about using a deck I'm saying to use. It's more about, okay, what's my version of that deck in my own existing collection? This is meant to be a list where you don't have to go shopping to tap into these energies. So the first deck that you're going to want to work with when you're feeling depleted is a gentle deck. This is a deck that you always feel supported by, that you always feel loved by when you work with it. It may bring up a sense of nostalgia, of love, of connection. And so for me, the 2 decks that I have from the gentle deck aspect is the Coastal Curiosities deck by Lennox Rees. This is the pocket edition, and Jessica Rue's Woodland Wardens. Drawing from these as I've moved throughout my day, when I feel really like I'm being really hard on myself, drawing from either of these decks has brought a lot of love and support, and it's allowed me to feel less disconnected. So the card pull prompt here for you. So what I would recommend is find a gentle deck. Then you're going to pull 1 card from this deck, and it's going to answer the following question: how am I supported right now? This isn't a card spread. It's a 1-card pull. I found asking very specific questions when I'm depleted doesn't make me have to work really hard to think and figure out the answer. Instead, it really allows me to have the answer at my fingertips and to feel that level of connection that I'm looking for to my path when I'm feeling really depleted. So the question for your gentle deck is, how am I supported right now? Pull 1 card around where and how you're being supported, and let yourself reflect on what comes up for you when you look at that card. And let that be an affirmation that you're not alone or abandoned on your path. So that is the gentle deck. And as I said, I recommend Coastal Curiosities, Woodland Wardens, any deck that, again, that feels gentle in its nature. Now, the next deck on the list is a nurturing deck. So we have the softness of the first deck, letting us know where we're supported. Now we need a nurturing deck. And this is going to let us know where we're at so that we can best show up for ourselves, using the, overused adage at this point of, if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't really take care of anyone else, right? And as trite as that may sound at this point for many of us, it is actually true. If we are so depleted that we cannot give anything to others, then we're not really showing up in a way that we want to. And so prioritizing where we're at is a part of that equation. So for me, when it comes to nurturing decks, I have 2 recommendations, and then I have 2 questions for you to pull a card on with each of these. This is the Into the Lonely Woods deck by Lucy Cavendish, and I think it's Dan May or Brian May, and the Thistledown Oracle by Three Trees Tarot. Both of these decks are deeply nurturing for me. They really let me know what I need to know about myself that I may feel too disconnected from myself to be able to offer myself just right off the bat when I wake up. Maybe I'm so tired that I don't know what I want besides going back to bed, and that's not an option, right? So these type of decks, they're going to give you that sense of, what do I need? How can I give that to myself in an accessible way as I move through the day? So you're going to grab a nurturing deck for yourself, your version of the Thistledown Oracle or the Into the Lonely Woods Oracle. And then you're going to pull a card for each of these questions and just reflect on what comes up. What am I feeling? And what does my body need? Those are the 2 questions to pull a card each for those questions and just reflect. I do find that tapping into what I'm feeling allows me to feel witnessed in some way. And what I have discovered as I get older is that I really want myself to witness myself. I don't necessarily always need it to come from someone else. When you're younger, I think we are all looking for those people that we feel like get us and we get them, and we can mirror back to each other things. I've really come to understand over the last few years that I'm really looking at a need to witness myself. And so when I tap into what am I feeling, what does my body need, it presents an ability to be present for myself in a way that I may not feel like I can sit down and figure out in the moment. So you'll draw a card for each of those questions and just reflect. And then you can kind of sit with, how can I be there for myself with this feeling? It's not about fixing the feeling. It's about being with yourself for the feeling. And then when it comes to what your body needs, you can just kind of sit with, as you're reflecting, how could I give myself a little bit of that today? Like maybe I can't do a whole workout today. My body would like to exercise, but maybe I could go for a 10-minute walk or do 5 push-ups. Or maybe my body needs something really nurturing to eat today instead of cutting carbs, for example. Or maybe my body needs to travel to a different location so I can have a change of scenery. These kind of reflections, we can make small incremental moves in that direction, which gives us a sense of taking care of ourselves and can assist us in getting out of a space of feeling like we're failing, right? Now, the next deck on the list is a Truthful Deck. And you're going to ask 2 questions of this deck for yourself. I would say my most truthful decks, of course, really are Tarot of Vampires and the Void Tarot. But for this list, I wanted to give you 2 Oracle deck options. So when it comes to a Truthful Deck, I have the Haunted Manor Oracle by Syrian Shadow, which is currently out of print. And I also have the Memento Mori Oracle by Claire Goodchild. This is available on her website, which I will try to remember to put the link in the description box down below. Why do we want a Truthful Deck here? Because we're looking at how to take care of ourselves as we move through a period of transition that's presenting itself as a disconnect from how we typically feel and are able to move about in our lives. A Truthful Deck is going to give you the answer straight up so that you don't have to sit with prevaricating with yourself and overanalyzing and overthinking. So the 2 questions that you will pull a card each for are, what am I learning about myself? How can I best protect my energy? I put these 2 questions here because I found for this kind of threshold experience for myself it's actually become very important to be honest about my energy levels in my life moving forward. And so what I am learning is that I need to recalibrate an expectation I have towards and for myself. How can I best protect my energy? When we feel depleted, interactions with others can deplete us even more. And so it may be an important time to set stronger boundaries for yourself, or to be very clear with those boundaries so that you are not feeling depleted. You also may find that instead of needing to set boundaries or be clear about your boundaries, you need to clear your energy more, or you need more time in solitude, or maybe you need more time with people that you love and trust. Protecting your energy isn't only about setting boundaries, it's about caretaking your energy field, which means you have to tap into it. And that's what this question answers for you. And then I've written on the list to connect with a passion deck. So this is a deck that always kind of galvanizes you and gives you a sense of adventure, or a sense of feeling like you can handle life when you work with a deck. Something that gives you a sense of tapping back into the things that you typically love. And if you feel stuck around this one, think of a deck whose imagery you find particularly beautiful. That's the deck you want to pull out. So for me, that deck is the Sistine Tarot. This deck is currently out of print, but another option here would be Tierra May's Ritual Tarot, or what is the name of this one? Hold on. Oh, the Goddess of Love Tarot by Gabby Herstick, or the Peculiar Pathways Tarot by Lennox Reese. But a deck that helps you to tap back into beauty and things that have typically ignited you from a sense of creativity. This is something that can help you remember you're not always going to feel this level of exhaustion or disconnect. And you're going to pull one card each for the following two questions. What might I feel passionate about? Be open to what shows up there, because what you feel passionate about right now might have shifted from your typical idea of passion in the past. So be open to whatever comes up with that pull, and be curious about it. If something comes up that you weren't expecting, that's okay. You can move in that direction. Like, Greek and Roman mythology isn't typically my place or my jam, but something has come up around that over the last few weeks. And to kind of go there, while not my typical route, was something that was expansive. So if this answer surprises you, lean into it, get curious about that. And then the second pull to have from your passion deck is, how can I begin to explore that passion? So now we're rooting something into an actionable step. How can I begin to explore that passion? And then the final deck that I have on this list is what I like to call my Crone Deck. So when I work with Crone energy, I really want to feel medicine. I want to feel that I'm working with a medicine deck, and that I'm receiving ancient feminine wisdom from the Crone herself. So the two decks I have recommended here are the Weaver's Oracle and the Old Ways Magick Oracle. The Old Ways Magick Oracle is by Naomi Cornock, and Carolyn Hillier did the Weaver's Oracle. Another option here could be the Fairies Oracle or the Heart of Fairies Oracle by Brian Froud. Both of those decks contain a lot of straight shooting, honest decks. Another Crone deck that I would love to recommend for you here is the Witch Sister Tarot. Very powerful. You will have wisdom from Baba Yaga, the Kalyach. Many faces of the Crone appear in this deck. In fact, the 10s within the minors in this deck are solely focused on Crone energy. So this is another wonderful deck to access that wisdom with. That deck is by Julia Jeffrey, and it is mass produced. You can find it on Amazon. So you're going to draw one card from this deck. This Crone deck is your medicine deck. It tells you the truth, but it also gives you insight into your own experience. And it's spoken from a lens of the dark, sacred, feminine in her elder aspect. So the question answered here is, what wisdom does the feminine wish to share with me about my journey at this time? And this is going to give you a little clarity on where you're at within your journey and why you may be feeling this transition that is not entirely comfortable in your path and story. So this allows the crone to really share insight with you and also allow you to feel seen and supported, but it gives you some insight into what may be coming, which can be quite lovely to know that you're not always going to be in the energetic space you're in, right? And also I find decks like Old Ways Magick Oracle, the Weaver's Oracle, the Witch Sister Tarot, the WildWood Tarot, they give you a lot of meat on the bone in that guidebook. So you can really sit with this card pull for a few days and come back to the wisdom within the guidebook, come back to the energy of the crone you feel speaking to you, and reflect and be present through this time and period of transition. So if you are moving through a time of burnout, or you just feel disconnected from yourself, you're unsure of what's going on, but you can't find your usual level of energy reserve or joy in your experience, this deck list and these card pull prompts are meant to assist you and to allow you to feel supported as you move through a time where your being and your body are asking for nurturing, slowing down, savoring, and presence. It has been, as always, an honor to sit with you guys. Thank you so much for all of your support of my work and the channel here by being with us in community, whether you're watching or you're on Patreon with me, or you've purchased a reading or a space in observances or a workshop. I am deeply grateful for you. I'm